job. Man, can we just give it up for, I feel like I saw the king coming out of him as he was singing it. Like you saw the lips start to pucker, it's just like, let's go, Josh. That was awesome. It is so good to have you guys here today. In case you don't know, we've been going through this series called Christmas Rewind, and part of that has been each week we've been trying to kind of show these different eras, and so maybe you've noticed the nuanced differences of the family on the stage dressing differently, the decorations of the tree being different, but what we've really been wanting to do is slowly but surely we're getting to next week, which is the first Christmas, the birth of Jesus Christ. And so I'm just super excited for that. I'm super excited for all the energy, time, effort, and just everything that the team is putting into it. And we are all putting everything into it for a purpose, guys, because we want people to hear about the good news of Jesus Christ. We want them to learn about what Christmas is really about, and we want them to know that they are loved just as Christ has loved us. And so that's what this season's about. That's what we continue to celebrate and be so excited for. But I just got to ask you a question. Have you ever looked at something and just never understood what it was there for? Like maybe you're a car person, or I do a lot of woodworking, and so I know what a lot of these things are. But then someone else might look at that same engine and see windshield washer fluid, like the storage container, and think maybe that's the engine or the coolant or whatever, because they never knew what it was there for. Right? And we have the same instances in a lot of areas in life. So I'm going to have a couple images thrown up. Our first image here, if you've ever gotten new clothes, you might have gotten a button. We all know what the button's for. It's in case you lose a button. But a lot of times it comes with this swatch of clothing. And I didn't realize this, but there's actually two purposes for it. First purpose was in case you ripped a certain area, you maybe could use it to create a patch. But more importantly, it's used so that new clothes you got, you can test and see how the fabric handles your washer and your detergent before you put your new clothes in there. Who knew, right? Now, your new sweater you got for Christmas, you don't have to go and ruin if it came with the clothes, right? Our next image here, this one blew me away. How many of y'all, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to call anyone out, but you seen the people where they swing the gas thing all the way over their car to get it there. I just can't handle that, all right? I'm sorry. It's not the right way, and so it irritates me. And here's the thing. Your car, almost everybody's car, tells us which side the gas cap is on. I never knew this, but look, if you look closely at the image, there's an arrow next to the gas icon. It's telling you that it is on the left side of your car. So now you don't have to have that anxiety every time you pull up. If you pull up to the Costco gas station, you know what I'm talking about? There's like 8 gas lanes, and you're like, which one do I go into? Now you know, just look at the arrow. And so I was blown away when I learned that hack. Another image here, how many people realize why there's a hole in the pen cap? It's, potentially because it makes a really cool whistle, but more importantly, there's a lot of people who chew on this and accidentally suffocate on it. And so they put a hole in that so that their airway would still be open for them to survive as they were trying to get that out. So who knew? Maybe be more conscious about chewing on that pen cap next time. But this one got my wife. She didn't know this until we were married. Who knew there were tabs on the side of aluminum foil and plastic wrap so that when you're unrolling it, it doesn't just fly out? It's amazing. It's a game changer. If you already knew, you're living in heaven with me. We're doing great here, guys. And the last one is just a really cool thing is if you ever have a spaghetti-specific ladle, there's a hole. It's a perfect size for one serving, one person. But I show all of these images because until you know, you just don't know, right? Yeah, that's just how things go and function in this world. Like, I didn't know, and now I know, and now I'll always tell people about spaghetti ladles and gas station arrows and stuff like that because now you know. And there's just some things, I don't know how you feel about this, but there's some things where once you know, you'll never forget, right? And what I want you to know, and really what I want our city to know, what I want you to be commissioned is for people to know who they were created by and why they were created. I want people to look at themselves and understand why they exist. And if we don't realize this or recognize this, there's a lot of people who have never heard of God that don't know that they were created by God. And so my whole idea and plan for today is to show you why we should be passionate about this and why we should lead to sharing it with others. And so today, I want to talk about our image. But more specifically, I want to talk about who and why we were created on this earth in the first place. Because I believe we need to answer that why before we can live out our lives and accomplish the how. And if we don't understand why we are here, why we were created, and what we were created for, then we will never understand how we can live our lives with purpose. If we never understand the why, we'll never be able to live out the life in its fullness that God has created. And so this starts at the very beginning. We're going to open our Bibles. If you got them, or it'll be on the screen. Genesis 1:27. It says this: God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. I want us to focus on God created all of us in his image, in his own image. And so we are created in, the Latin term is imago Dei. Everyone say imago Dei. That means the image of God. So you are then in turn created in the imago Dei, the image of God. But I feel like a lot of us have read that before. A lot of us have gone through Genesis maybe before, if you grew up in Sunday school or wherever, and maybe we've overlooked the significance of that. And so today my goal and my purpose would be for you to really truly understand what it means to be created in the imago Dei, the image of God, because it is the most significant difference, what separates us as humans from everything else in creation and in this universe. This image, this imago Dei is what separates us from everything. And so it's pretty significant to understand what it is, why it is, and why God did it. Because God, the creator of the entire universe, he made us in his image. But we need to understand what that means to really begin to understand the significance. To be made in someone's image, does that just mean that we look like them? Or does that mean that we talk like them? Like, I know I'm made in the image of my parents. I've got their genetics, and so I look a little like them and I sound a little like them, right? And you got those friends who say, oh, you look just like your mom, or you're just like your dad. And sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a painful thing to hear, right? But ultimately, we are made in the image of somebody, the person whose our parents are. But this isn't what God's talking about when he created us in his image. Because God is of spirit. He is not of in a finite human physical body. He is God. He is more powerful than that. And so we aren't created in the way he looks or the way he talks. So we're created in his image, but more significant, we're created in his image of the way we live and act in our lives. The personality and the pursuits and the passions and the purpose that we choose to have, this is the image that we were created in. It is what is driving me in all of life. The image I was created in was through God, which means I should live my life like Christ did, like God has. This is what it means to be created in the image of God. And we're going to kind of dive into really what it means to be an image bearer, right? We bear the image of God, every single one of us, whether we know it or not. And so what does it look like to be an image bearer? And we're going to start in 1 John chapter 2, verse 6. It says this really short verse. It says, whoever claims to live in him meaning Jesus, whoever claims to live in Jesus Christ must live as Jesus did. So in other words, if I'm going to claim I'm a Christian, if I'm going to say this, then I must actually choose to live this as well. And this leads us to our first point, that image bearers, they reflect. Image bearers are called to reflect. If I'm going to say I'm a Christian, if I'm going to say I believe in Jesus, then people should see that by the way I reflect it. And this made me think, Caroline, as we're getting closer and closer to this baby coming. I'm going to keep talking about it because, we're getting there. Some things that have started happening is there's been just a lot of random cramps. She'll get like a foot cramp or a hip cramp, and it'll just disable her, right? And we had this one moment where Caroline was walking off the couch, and right then a foot cramp hit, and she could barely walk. I had to run and grab her, hold her, and pull her back onto the couch. And while this is all happening, Finley has just been recently mimicking everything we do. And so Caroline is crying. She is actually sobbing because of the pain she's getting in the cramp as I'm trying to pull her back. And Finley is just laying on the couch, head down, just sobbing, just screaming like her mom. And this is just one of those dad moments. I'm like, and you're telling me I'm having another girl. And I'm just like, I'll survive through Christ who strengthens me, am I right? And so I'm looking at this whole situation and I'm just like, what is going on? And I'm not kidding, the second Caroline stops crying, Finley stops. And I go, Finley, what, were you feeling sad? She goes, yeah. I was like, why are you feeling sad? She goes, because mom's sad. And I was like, that's so sweet, but please stop screaming when mom's screaming. It just gets more chaotic. We're called to reflect. Image bearers reflect. Finley reflected what her mom was doing. She reflected exactly what she was doing and the things and how she was acting. As image bearers of God, we are called to do the same, reflect the image of Christ in God. We must reflect it. And so it was so funny because it literally happened this week and I just put in there, Finley's been mimicking a lot of things recently, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be a great story to share about how we should reflect the image of Christ, right? Because it is so significant to understand as image bearers, we are called to reflect who God is, not who we are. As image bearers, and like the rest of this world, it's not about putting out my image, about putting our image, about doing whatever I want to get that significance or popularity, and it's about reflecting his image, God's image. So it's not about me, it's about reflecting the creator of the universe. This leads us into our second passage, Romans 12:2. It says, do not conform to the patterns of this world. Don't conform to the way this world just wants to share its own image, but rather be transformed by the renewing of your mind. How is your mind renewed? Through God, because then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, what his good, pleasing, and perfect will is. And so our second point, image bearers, they represent. Image bearers represent. If we are transformed, if our mind is renewed, then we will be able to test and approve what is God's will, and we will be able to live out our lives representing who Christ is. All of us have represented something in our lives. Whether you like it or not, you represent the family name. Youngest of 7 here saying sometimes hearing you're a Gibson was a good thing, and sometimes hearing you're a Gibson was a really bad thing. And maybe you all have lived in those different situations where the people before you, the name before you, comes with a great connotation, and other times it comes with a really negative one. Because we represent our name. We represent our organizations, the places you choose to go to and come to. You're representing them. You represent the Pointe Church. You represent the place you work for. You represent things. And when we represent, we are not just the person or the thing that we're trying to represent. We are actually the only perception that someone will have of that thing. So if I'm representing my job, most likely I will be the only perception of a correct representation of my organization. And so I just got to share real quickly, my perception of Ohio State fans is they are all crazy. My perception of Michigan Spartans fans and Michigan Wolverines fans is they are all crazy. I have never met a fan base of those three types that have ever been so diehard and just kind of crazy, guys. I mean, Hoosiers over here, there's a couple diehard fans. The rest are just like, oh, we're having another bad year. So these fans are crazy. And you know what? Some of you guys might be like, I'm not a crazy fan. But it doesn't matter because my perception of Ohio State fans has all stemmed down from the first Ohio State fan I met who was crazy. And so now I broad stroke over all Ohio State fans, over all Michigan Spartans fans, over all Michigan Wolverines fans. They're crazy because the first people I met that represented that were kind of crazy. And so I'm saying this because your representation of Christ matters. It is probably the only image and perception someone will have of Christ. So how are you representing Christ then? And now we go through the timeline of our life and we go, I've not been doing a good job. They probably think God's a little crazy because I'm a little crazy, right? And so we're called to represent his image, but how well and correctly Are we representing his image? How are we choosing to love other people? How are we choosing to care for other people? How are we choosing not to shove someone down because we want to get that thing or get front in line during this crazy holiday season? We are a representation of Christ, and so we must live our lives accordingly and recognize that everything I do, either correctly or incorrectly, represents Christ. If I am in the image, the imago Dei of God. And so image bearers, they represent. This leads us to Mark chapter 16, verses 15 to 16. Here's what it says. Many people have heard this before, but this is Jesus' great commission as he's about to ascend after he rose from the dead. He's telling his disciples these last things, and he says to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. And whoever believes and is baptized, they will be saved. But whoever does not believe will be condemned. I love that he just lays it out so clearly. Like it doesn't have to be complicated. Whoever believes will be saved. But whoever does not believe will not be saved. It's not complicated. And yet, how often as image bearers are we making sure that other people have heard that gospel and had that opportunity to be saved or to be condemned? And this leads us to our third point. Image bearers reproduce. Image bearers are called to reproduce. That if I'm sharing an image that is of worth to you, that then it would lead to you wanting to share that same image. If I'm a really great Ohio State fan, then maybe you'll become one. I'll never become one, but some people out there. Because if I'm reflecting and representing the image correctly, then it should be reproducing, right? And so this is what we are called to do in our faith and in our life, is that not only do we reflect his image, not only do we represent his image, but we actually are called to reproduce that image onto others. To let others know about his goodness and about his truth and about his grace. Because the main purpose of being an image bearer is so that others will see the true image that they were created in. Because once again, so many people don't know until they know. You're the opportunity for them to finally know and understand that they were created in the imago Dei, the image of God. We are image bearers of God. And I just come back to Genesis 1:27, and what we started with this morning, and I just want to reread it. God created mankind in his own image, every single one of us. Friend, enemy, in-law that you really don't like, in-law that you really do like, everybody was created in the image of God. There's no differentiation here except that we were all created in his image. And so if that's the case, then as image bearers, as ones who understand this, we are called then to reflect it, represent it, and reproduce it. And one of the simplest ways I could think about this was a mirror, because I don't look at myself in the mirror a lot. I probably should to make sure I look okay more often, but I'm just not a mirror guy. But most people are looking at themselves in the mirror. When you wake up in the morning, make sure you don't have a zit or whatever it might mean, right? Brush your teeth, comb your hair, and you look at yourself. As image bearers of Christ, we are not called to just continue to look at ourselves and look at our image. We are actually called to reflect him. I'm going to blind y'all. You're welcome. You're welcome. Now I'll leave it up here so everyone's okay now. We are called to reflect his image onto others. If I don't have this pointing out, then it cannot affect others. A lot of people hold their faith and hold the image that God has given them like this. No one will ever know that I'm a believer. I hope it never comes out that they realize he's a crazy Christian. But they know you're a crazy Ohio State University fan, so what's going on here? Why in my life am I willing to be bold and passionate about so many things, but when it comes to what I was created for and who I was created by and the purpose I was given, I'm hiding the opportunity to share it with others. We're called to reflect that image. We're called in our lives and in our purpose to reflect it, to represent it, because at the end of the day, I'm still holding this. And so if I'm reflecting an image of God's so good, he's so gracious, and then I'm yelling at all my friends and family and telling them they're the worst, they're gonna look at who's holding that image. And I'm called to reproduce it, because if any of y'all had mirrors, I could shine that and then it would bounce off your mirror and it would bounce onto other mirrors and it would blind a lot of more people, yeah, but it would reproduce. It would reproduce the image that I have been given to share with others. And so this is what God calls us in our life to do, is to help share and represent his image. Because this is what God desires for all of humanity, is that every single one of us would know him, that every single one of us would have a relationship with him. And man, one of the things that this made me think about as I was working through this sermon is growing up as a kid, I really loved Spider-Man. Favorite superhero, still to this day, probably my favorite superhero. And as a kid, I'm youngest of 7, so I grew up in a hand-me-down family. And I remember that magical day when that bag of hand-me-downs came in, and there was Spider-Man pajamas. And I went crazy. I wore those pajamas. I was like, oh, this is so cool. I could wear these. I didn't even let my mom wash them. I was just like, let's go. And then I remember the next day, I wore those Spider-Man pajamas underneath my clothes. And it continued because I love Spider-Man so much and I wanted to be just like Peter Parker, just a random person. But boom, who knew I was Spider-Man? And I was so excited. The outfit, it didn't come with a mask or anything. So I, out of cardboard, made my little face shape, cut out eye holes, Sharpie markered the Spider-Man. I was asking my mom if she had a picture. She doesn't, but imagine it was probably pretty cute. And I was Spider-Man, I was doing all the Spider-Man things, and then in my modern day, I was walking around because I knew I was Spider-Man, but no one else did, right? I so proudly and so confidently and so passionately represented the image of Spider-Man. I was so excited for everyone to know who I was and what I cared about. And yet today, as we all sit here, if we can be really real and honest with ourselves, how passionate and confident am I about sharing my image of God? Representing that image just in the same way. Because guess what? This isn't a fictional character we're talking about. This isn't Spider-Man. This is the creator of the entire universe who has given you an opportunity to have eternal salvation with him in heaven. And not only that, but now while you're here on earth, until you get to go be there with him in heaven, he wants to do a work in you. He wants to continue to help develop you and build you and grow you to be a stronger Christian who can love more people, share the truth with more people, reflect that image like crazy and annoy people, because that's what Christ has called us to do on this earth, is to bear his image, and there's significance in that. And this is just the question I have, the question that I want you to really wrestle with, because I believe that if we wrestle with this, our lives will be changed as we think about it, is who in your life doesn't know that they were created in the image of God? Every single one of you have just heard what it means to be created in the image of God, Imago Dei. Every single one of you have heard what it means to bear the image of Christ. But there are so many people on this planet. There are so many people in your jobs, in your life, at the grocery store, where you go to lunch today. There are so many people who have never heard what it means and the significance that it comes with bearing the image of God. And so I believe there's a lot of people who have never felt and understood that their life has a greater purpose, that their life has more meaning, that Jesus Christ created them and cares about them. That God has a plan for them that is greater than what they could come up with. That God knows them more than anyone else knows them. All of these things, that they bear the image of God, are things that a lot of people do not know yet. And as image bearers, it is our job for people to finally understand why. Why was I created? What was my purpose? How do I gain fulfilling and joy in this world? Because so many people are not noticing the signs. So many people don't see the arrow on the gas icon. So many people don't realize that the ladle's for that. So many people are missing the why and just living their lives trying to find some purpose. but every single one of you knows your purpose, knows who you were created by, and knows why you were created. And so it is our job, it is our task in life to share that with others, because we are called as image bearers to reflect, represent, and reproduce. And it just leads me to think in 2 Corinthians 5:21, this won't be on the screens because I added it last minute. 2 Corinthians 5:21 tells us God made him being Jesus, who had no sin. Jesus had none, to be sin for us, so that in him, in Jesus, we might become the righteousness of God. God cares about you and he loves you. The one thing that stands different between you and all of creation is that you bear his image. And so he does not give up on you. He has not lost hope on you. He still believes in you. He still loves you. He still cares for you. And he so much wants you to receive his grace, but he's letting you choose. And it's a choice that you have to make. And I pray and ask God that it would be a choice that you could lead others to make. Because of the image we bear, we get the opportunity to share that with others. Jesus Christ was the ultimate image bearer. And as we come into this season, there is no greater time to share with other people what significance and importance their life has. Maybe they've never realized that it's beyond the presence, it's beyond the chaos, it's beyond all the things that Christmas sometimes gets made to be. It's much more about the fact that Jesus Christ came down on this earth. Little baby, insignificant place, insignificant people. Jesus Christ, bearing the image of us actually, came to save us so that as image bearers of Christ, we could be redeemed. As image bearers of God, we could be saved. That we could celebrate up in heaven with Jesus and have a great time. It's all because of how he loves us. And this is why as image bearers, we must share this to other people. So I just got to ask, would you just pray with me right now? Father God, we just thank you for who you are. God, I'm just asking, because there's no power Noah Gibson has. There is power that your Holy Spirit has. So I'm just praying in your name, God. I'm praying that we would see life change. God, that this Christmas season would not be about us. It would not be about getting the house clean. It would not be about making everything perfect. But it would be about sitting in peace sometimes. And just recognizing, God, the beautiful story and plan you've created and the plan that you continue to accomplish. God, there's so many people who are having a blue Christmas this year. There's so many people who have lost jobs, who are going through financial loss, who are going through divorce, who are going through pain after pain after pain. And God, it is our opportunity, it is our job to share hope, to share truth, and to show grace. And so God, I'm just asking in a challenge to every single person here, would we leave today and let those mirrors show? Would we leave today, God, and let other people understand that we bear your image? Would we leave today being inspired to not be that calm Ohio State fan, but to be the crazy one? So I want to leave out here and I want people to know that I wear my Jesus pajamas. I want to leave out here and I want people to know that God is my Savior and that he can be yours. So Lord, I just lift that up. I pray for those who maybe have never accepted you in their life, that they would know today is an opportunity, that there are people here who would love to pray with them, let them accept Jesus in their heart and begin the journey of what it looks like to find and follow you, God. Thank you for every single person here, Lord. May they be blessed today, and may we continue to think about who are the people that don't know that they were created in your image, in your wonderful and powerful name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Noah.
Hey there. Thank you so much for watching and checking us out. Hey, I want you to know we go live every Sunday. So I would love for you to like and subscribe to make sure that we can stay connected together all the time. I'll see you next time. Bye.